Welcome to the Ladder Barrel series. What you're about to see are the beginner, intermediate, and advanced segments back to back. You'll also see some of the same exercises that were performed on the reformer done here. The short box series, for instance, is nicely performed on the ladder barrel because its rounded surface lends itself to performing that sequence. Get ready for the barrel series. So this is the large barrel in the Joseph Pilates syllabus, and I would like to discuss this piece of equipment. It's called the ladder barrel, and you can see that it's an apt name because it has a ladder on this side, okay, with poles that, on my version in my old studio, used to have a pole that just kind of flipped around that moved, but it's really best to have it stabilized, okay? A lot of the equipment has become updated over the years, and this is one of the great advents, that it's actually more stable, okay? Then we come around to this side of the equipment, and this is really the horse side. It's the barrel side. And speaking of horses, it's really one of the first exercises that we teach on this apparatus. So if you look at the base, there are adjustments. There are dials actually under the barrel that you can adjust accordingly. They spin, and there are two sets. So you can move this barrel forward and back while the actual apparatus is stationary. So according to someone's height, you gauge how far away their legs are from that barrel. And you'll see that when we go into other exercises. The short box particularly, where someone has to have his or her feet hooked under the ladder, okay? But I'm gonna actually have Kim stand into the middle, which is the well, just as there's a well for the reformer. And she's gonna swing her left leg over and across, and she's gonna mount the horse. So we are presenting the beginner level barrel to you. But on that note, I want to just say that the barrel, as apparatus go, is really the kind of place where all levels can do all exercises, with the exception of the Swan and the side sit-ups, which you're going to see when we get to the intermediate level. That's something that you really want to wait a while to teach. But the horseback, the ballet stretches, and the rest of the order of exercises you can teach to multi-levels, okay? So just as we saw the horseback on the chair and the horseback on the reformer, you're going to have your client reach her legs forward, and in this case, forward of the barrel, the edge of the barrel. And it's really nice and neat that you can say, Kim, keep your legs, your feet in front of this area, okay? She's rotating her legs externally in the hip socket. She starts with her hands in the tray position the same way. She takes a breath in, she exhales, and she lifts up off her seat. She holds, and she sits back and releases. So of course you want someone to try it a few times. And the hands-on, I'm going to have you do it again, inhale, exhale, lifting up, is here. And of course the client is much higher up, so it's easier as the teacher to teach from this vantage point. And also, what else? Psychologically, it's much more accessible for the client because nothing's moving. And look how nice and broad that is. It's kind of comfy for someone. So this time she's going to take a breath in. She's going to exhale. She's going to lift up. Her gaze is going to go slightly more forward, and she's going to circle the arms 1. Circle the arms 2. She circles for the third and last time. She comes on up. She takes a breath in. Exhale. She flexes the feet and comes back to starting. So look at her feet this time. She's going to stretch her feet as she comes up into the exercise. She takes a breath in. She exhales. She drives the navel into my hand back here, and she circles 1. So the toes are pointed this time 2. Circling 3. Circling 4, she holds, and she sits back, and she releases. So there are so many variations with this exercise. You can actually have someone come up there and reverse the arms, or you can merely have them circle this way, because when you promote somebody with the horseback, they eventually want to be on the reformer holding handles, and they're pulling with resistance. So this is a nice place for them to learn it, okay? So Kim is actually going to dismount. She's going to come off. And she's going to turn and face the barrel because we're moving on to ballet stretches. So in ballet, we work on the midline of the body the same way that we do in Pilates with the tripod stance. And this is a perfect forum to really see the symmetry in the body. when the leg is a little higher than 45 degrees. So she's going to take her left leg first. She brought it across the body. Okay, can you show the wrong way, actually? People sometimes go around without control. Primarily because no one has ever lifted his leg or her leg to that height before, right? So she crosses it up and around. It's right down the midline of the body. She's holding onto the handles. Can you show the alternate position with the hands back? This is generally also if someone does a back bend. You want their hands to be back. Okay, so we're going to have her holding onto the handles. She inhales, she exhales, and she curls into her C curve, bringing the head down as close to the knee as possible. She inhales up, she exhales, and she does a slight back bend as she continues to reach through that leg. Inhale, exhale. We do this 3 times. Rolling up through the spine, exhaling and projecting with the sternum up to the ceiling. Inhaling here, exhaling forward. Let's say this is her 3rd time. She's going to stay there. She's going to take her hands off of the handles, reach forward, and clasp her foot, and then flex it. This is a variation, okay? You won't have everyone doing this, and of course, not everyone has this range. So can you show what our friend Harry might do? Or he would put his hands on the barrel and just be here. And this is a great stretch for people. Can you look at her standing leg too, by the way? Most people will bend their standing leg. And what you want to tell them to do is push the floor away. Okay? So then we go to the bent leg variation. We're going to show both variations on each leg. So this is called an attitude in French, in ballet. And the same midline alignment is working. So she takes a deep breath in, exhale, she rounds forward. So she's actually stretching the muscles of the hip at this point. She inhales up, and she exhales, and she repeats the sequence. So we have to do that again, because I want you to back bend. Don't worry. So she inhales here. She's going to exhale and bend forward. She's going to breathe in, and then she arches the upper back out, the same way she did for straight leg. She breathes in, she exhales and rolls forward with her spine. She comes up for the 3rd and final time, and she lifts up. Comes back. Then she straightens the leg out, and look what she does. She lifts the leg up off, and she turns to face you. So this is really directly from ballet, and I want to just talk about this very briefly while you're here. You can either have your client go from front to side to back, which is en croix, which means all the way around, or crossing. Or you can have the person still face the barrel and just switch to the other side. Okay? But we're going to do the side. So she takes her right arm up, she inhales and exhales, bending over. And what does this look like? Mermaid. Okay? Inhaling up, she switches hands, and she goes the other way. And here someone's hip will most likely pop up, so you really use a hands-on this way. Inhaling up, exhaling over. And you see where she's holding? She's giving herself a cross stretch. And here you can correct ribs in. Coming up, last time, up and over. Lifting up and pausing. So then, from here we go to the side leg bent, which I just have to say, for most people, is not so easy. Can you kind of do it wrong, where you really lift up? Right, this is what happens primarily. So as the teacher, you want to make sure that their hips are as square as possible, and you may have to bring their foot forward a little bit, okay? Because this has to do with rotation in the hip socket. So the same thing happens with the upper body. She's pushing the floor away with that supporting leg. She takes a breath in. Exhale, she goes over, and this is a great side stretch. It feels so good to people. She breathes in. Exhale, she goes over. And the tendency here is to let this hop, so as the teacher, I would press down on her foot and her hip. Inhale, exhale, over. And I'm kind of pulling her. Not in a shy way, but with some oomph. Last time. And I want to say this too. You would usually do these exercises at the end of a session when someone's warm, so that they can really get the benefit of stretching their muscles, okay? So then she stretches the leg out, she uses her core, and she promenades to the back. So this is arabesque in ballet, okay? Now, this looks pretty easy for her. For most people, it's a major stretch. And it also doesn't feel so warm and fuzzy on the low back. Some people will not be able to do this exercise. You need to know that. What you want to look for here is squared shoulders, a strong supporting leg, and a leg that's energized from the back. So we repeat. We take a deep breath in. And this time she bends back. She arches. She comes to inhale forward. And she exhales to arch back. So there really is no forward bend here. Usually there's a wall here in the studio. Okay, and on the third and final time, she comes back up and she bends her back leg and grabs it. This is also something that most mortals can't do. And she extends up and out and she gets this beautiful stretch in the upper back. This is a variation because sometimes you just reach back and you don't lift up and back into this arch. But this is a more advanced variation, and then this is a less advanced. And you can also do it just keeping the foot on the mat. Okay, so we're going to stretch the leg out. And from here, we're going to promenade back around in one fell swoop. So she lifted up to releve. I don't know if you caught that. Then she lifts this top leg up, she brings it across, and she switches to the other leg. Okay? So she crosses it around. Standing leg is strong. This leg is down the midline. She takes a breath in, and exhale, she goes forward. Inhale, lifting up through the spine. Exhale, see the variation with her hands. And for our purposes, we're going to move through this a little faster on the second side. And typically speaking, you would have someone do it a little slower, but this is also an option. So this is the last time she reaches forward for a variation and flexes. So the barrel ballet stretches are a really nice place for the breath to slow down and for the movement to slow down, because she just finished running on the reformer, let's say, or she just finished pumping on the chair. So everything gets a little more internal and focused. She inhales up, she exhales backwards. This is another nice hands-on for the teacher, okay? While she's doing this, I want to talk about knees for a minute. What if someone has a knee injury? Do you think this is a really good position for them to be in? No, because it's not supported. So this is not the kind of thing that you would do with someone who has a knee injury. You would actually do just the straight leg variation. Okay? Nice. So from here, she stretches the leg out and she promenades. She can lift the leg, as you can see, if she's more advanced, to really challenge the muscles in the leg and the hip. So she takes a breath in, she exhales, and she comes over. Here's another nice hands-on and lifting up. She switches hands. I merely make sure that this hip is rotated in the hip socket. I'm going like this. And then here, I actually put my hand on her hand and I lengthen up and out. And she's smiling. You can't see it, but it feels really good. She comes up and she goes over. And I'm also not just pushing on her, I'm lengthening. Sometimes you can't stop someone from doing like 50 repetitions of this exercise. Can we do one more? Nice. So we go to the bent leg. So this is an extreme stretch for the leg, and not extreme bad extreme, extreme great. But you have to make sure that someone is well placed before they do it. She lifts up, exhale, she goes over. Same hands on. A little goes a long way. And I just make sure that she feels rooted here. And I want you to really check out her standing leg. You can keep moving, Kim. The standing leg is really like the foundation of the house. If the knee is bent, the rest of the body can't really stack itself on top. So when you're teaching this exercise, what are you going to be chirping the whole time is push the floor away. She extends the leg, she lifts it slightly as she goes to arabesque. Okay? So she's squaring her hips, she's lengthening through the leg, she takes a breath in. She exhales and she arches back, and I make sure that her shoulders are down and released. She inhales again, she exhales and she arches. She's using her abdominals to lift out of her low back. One more time. She comes back up, and from here she can reach back into arabesque attitude, okay? So here you get a beautiful view of what I saw on the other side. Do you see how this opens everything up? So it stretches the pectoralis and all of these muscles and the chest. Great. So she can come out of it, and she spins back around. She promenades. She's going to lift the leg with her powerhouse and the muscles of the thigh, and she comes down. Okay? So those are ballet stretches. And then she comes around outside. She's going to soften her knees in front of the barrel and kind of mold her back around the barrel. Watch what she does. And as the teacher, I help her to ease her spine back, and I guide her hands to the top rung. And she just hangs out here. And you can see what this must be doing to her body. So all of the abdominals that she just worked so hard on are being stretched, and the muscles of the chest and the muscles of the upper back. And so then she brings her arms up, she uses her abdominals to come up, and it actually looks like the round on the short box, right? Then she does a forward hanging, and as the teacher, you can work on the back here as well. Okay? And then she rolls up through the spine and returns. So you would do this more than once. You wouldn't do it 10 times, but you would do it up to 3 or 4. And she's breathing while she's here. Can we show the more advanced variation where your legs come off the floor? So on the intermediate and advanced levels of the barrel, this is what it looks like. She's extending her legs and she circles around. This is intermediate advanced barrel. Then she reverses it. Then she replaces her feet down. Her arms come up. She peels off, and you always have somebody do a counter stretch in an extreme range of motion like that. And she's actually grabbing underneath that lower rung under the barrel, which you can't really see, into a full forward bend. And she rolls up through the spine, and she pauses. Okay? And that is the beginner level of the ladder barrel. Okay? So we're going to move on now to the intermediate level ladder barrel, to the large barrel. And we are going to show you something called the swan dive. So Kim is going to come around. She's going to place her body on the barrel, and she gets her feet on the lowest 2 rungs of the ladder. So her heels are together, her toes are apart. She's in the toes position on the reformer, and the same that she used for the chair. And take a look at her body. So what I like to do, even before someone begins, is I give them a long stretch for their back. This feels really good on the sacrum, okay? So Kim, you're going to keep your feet placed on the barrel. You're going to poise your hands and get them ready. The palms are going to face up to the ceiling, and she inhales up, exhaling back for a stretch. She inhales and comes forward, squeezing her inner thighs, exhales and lifts up with straighter legs. She comes forward to a plank where she knits her ribs together, and she sidles back and releases down, okay? So again, this is full range of motion on an advanced body. And what I'd like you to do this time, Kim, is show something that doesn't go quite as far, okay? So she's going to inhale up, exhale just to here. She's going to inhale as she stretches out, squeezing her inner thighs, and then exhale just to here. Then she stretches out. She keeps reaching in the Superman or Superwoman position. She pulls her ribs up, she slides back, and she releases, okay? And now I'm going to have you show the more advanced variation where you just really go into as full a range as you like. Okay, and we're going to show you the rhythm of this exercise. So she goes, inhale to lift up and back, exhale. Inhale to come forward, exhale to lift. Inhale to stretch up and out, lift off my arm, sit back and release, and pause. Pretty fancy, huh? So you saw the beginner, you saw the intermediate, and the advanced of this exercise. And when I call it beginner, you wouldn't give it to a beginner, but you would do a beginner variation of the full range. Okay? So she's going to slide off, and we're going to turn right around on the surface of the barrel for the short box. Okay? So she's going to come on up, putting the feet up, hooking her toes on the top rung of the ladder, and she's in one line from the crown of the head to the sit bones, okay? She's going to start with the round, either hugging her waist or holding one hand on top of the other. and she's rounding into a C curve. So she inhales here. She exhales and rolls back. Her legs need to extend a little bit. She takes a breath in, exhale, and she scoops the body to come up forward. And again, inhaling here, exhaling to go back. Do you see how nice this surface is for the teacher? I'm standing up, I'm just hanging out with her, I'm not bending over too low. One more time. So Kim, go a little bit lower this time. Take a breath in, exhale, and peeling off. So on the intermediate barrel, she would actually go all the way off on this exercise. I'm going to hold her head. She releases, and she can also take her arms overhead in this position. I'm holding her legs just because I'm a security freak, and I want to make sure that she doesn't move. She crosses her legs back, or her arms back over her chest, and she pulls her body up. Okay? So the flat, we're going to show first this side without the pole, and then on the second variation, we'll show one with the pole. Okay? Hands come up. So here it's also a really wonderful forum or a place for you to help the client to knit her ribs together. Can you show it wrong? You'll see that a lot. Okay, so she pulls everything in. She inhales through the crown of the head as she goes back. She holds the breath, and she exhales to come up and forward. This is the hands-on. You want to make sure that you're either here or here with the flat. She goes back, she holds and holds and holds. Exhale, she grows tall to come home. One more time. Inhale to go back. Growing out of the crown of the head, drop your chin a little bit, Kim. Pull your ribs in deeper, and then come on up. Okay? And from here, she goes into the side bend. So she lifts up, and she side reaches over to the right. She lifts up tall to come home, and goes up and over to the left. One more time. Lifting up and over to the right, coming slightly in front of her hips last time. Great. And I'm going to get the pole to show the variation. So we're showing the short box, this time with a prop. Okay, so the flat and the side bend and the twist can be done this way. Let's just do two flats. So she's going to lift up and go back on the inhalation. She exhales as she comes forward. One more time. She grows tall. You saw how she squeezed her glutes and she grew? She lifts up and she comes home. She segues right into the side bend to the right. She lifts up and she side bends over. And as the teacher, I can swing to the front and I can use my hands on her hips to anchor the action. Last time over. So from here, Kim, you're going to lift up and you're going to twist to the right. You're going to come home and face front. So this is the beginner twist. Only twisting the body. And again, lifting up. Now as we get more advanced for the intermediate level, she goes out and over to the diagonal. She comes home to the front. She lifts up and she twists. And she reaches out and over, and she comes back front. So if you weren't twisting quite as far, and I was just introducing this to you, I would have you come forward more with your body, twist, and not reach out as far. That's how you introduce it. Twist front. One more time. So more of the beginner intermediate barrel. Okay? You can pause. I'll take that. And we move on to the tree. So here's another place where teaching the short box is wonderful because nothing's moving. And the client can also really, if you have a mirror in front of the barrel, the client can really see what's going on in the body. Okay? So I'm going to have you unhook your right leg. You keep this other foot hooked when you're going to go back. Okay? And as the teacher, as far as safety precautions are concerned, you want to make sure that when she extends back, you're right on the supporting leg, and I'll show you in a minute. So she's going to stretch the leg up and bend it in, just like on the short box on the reformer. She stays and she holds. She walks up. She brings nose to knee. And then she just straightens up her spine. I just want to show one of the beginner variations. You can just do this. You don't have to take the client back. You can stay there and again go nose to knee and just straighten your spine. So doing that is also a nice variation. Then nose to knee, she breathes in. Exhale, she brings everything back, and I sidle into position here to make sure that she's secure. Then she takes everything back. She walks down the leg. Elbows are wide. She takes a deep breath in. The leg is spiraling up to the ceiling, and she curls up bone by bone. Lifting up to a tall spine. The hands-on then becomes this. And if I want to really stretch her, I feel like a human vice and I go with her body against mine. That's more advanced. Again, nose to knee going back. I have this leg. Elbows are wide, reach that toe up, and you can go all the way back. That's the more advanced variation. And then she lifts up through her body, she walks up, and at the last one, the last rep, she can flex her foot, and she stretches up, but she releases her shoulders, and I'm stretching her with her help. So we're working together. So she bends the knee, and she switches to the other side, okay? So this whole barrel is such a feel-good apparatus. It's solid, it doesn't move, it's pretty cushy. You can check yourself out. The teacher is standing up and not bending over. Let's just show the first two preps. So you lift up, you breathe in. Feels good to breathe. Exhale and reaching forward. Inhale, lifting. Exhale, nose to knee. Now she's going to bring the whole thing back. And guess where I go? I've got you. So just to the start, that's number one. She breathes in, she exhales, and she comes up. She lifts the spine against the leg. Nose to knee. We go back maybe a little further this time. So once the practitioner knows what she's doing, I really don't have to be here. And I would definitely wait to let go until someone has done this many times over. Nose to knee, she brings it back, and she's going to go to a complete full extension. This is the more advanced barrel that we see, the advanced tree on the barrel. She climbs up, she flexes her foot, she lifts up nice and tall, and she comes out of it. Okay? So that's the short box on the large barrel. And we're going to finish by having Kim step down. Okay? So that, as I said, is multi-level. Beginner, intermediate, advanced, and we're going to show you the more intermediate advanced exercise called the side sit-up. Shall we? Mm-hmm. Okay. So please watch how she mounts. This is a really confusing exercise. I never really understood this when I first learned it. Her bottom leg, right, should ideally really be at the back edge, but it can also be in the center. She just wants to make sure that she's rooted and she's connected with this bottom leg. What tends to happen is this. So you have to make sure that the client is pushing against that rung. She's hooking the top foot. Her hips are square. She's going to take her hands behind her head and her neck. She's going to inhale as she dips down with the upper body, and exhale, she lifts up. Inhale, she goes down. Exhale, she lifts up. Inhale down, exhale up. So if you were a beginner, Kim, which you're not, you're going to go down a tiny bit, and you're going to come up and grow taller. This is what the beginner would do. Not the beginner, the beginner intermediate. Hold and rest. Okay, so we're going to have her switch to the other side. And I think we discussed this in every apparatus to date. Each side is different, right? So you really want to make sure that you square your client's hips and shoulders. Is this your strong side? Would you call it? They're pretty even, because she's been practicing Pilates her whole life. Take your arms up. We're going to show a few variations like this. She inhales over, she exhales, and her ribs are perfectly placed. But most people will do this with their ribs, so you have to really make sure they're knitted. Exhale, coming up. And we're going to show you one with the pole as a variation. Look at the muscles of her back. So, do you think this is easier or harder? It's harder. More weight reaching out last time. She holds, she releases the pole, and she comes out of the position. Okay? Do you want to show any of the super advanced variations for fun on the side sit-up?
We could.
Okay. So we'll just show two of the side sit-up variations for you to marvel at. So just like the other apparatus, once you get to the advanced, the intermediate advanced levels of the ladder barrel, those fairly straightforward exercises that you just saw become trickier and more demanding. So Kim is going to set up her body the way she did before. She's going to take her arms into position. You want to show the one with the arms up, nice and straight? Or do you want to show the one with the leg out? What's on the menu today?
We could do leg up with your assistance.
Okay, would you like me to hold the leg?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to put my pole down. This is the one I told everyone about at lunch the other day. So Kim is going to reach the body down, and exhale, she's going to lift up. She's going to reach the body down, and she's going to lift. She does one more time. She lifts up and she holds. Oh yeah. And gives herself a stretch. I have to have some fun, you know? Hold on. So she goes down and exhaling up. Inhaling down, exhaling up. Inhaling down, exhale up. She comes for a stretch. Nice. Okay, so what you just saw was the ladder barrel series, the large barrel series from Joseph Pilates syllabus. And we showed a few different exercises from beginner through advanced.